In Bunraku, Japan's classical puppet theater, the puppet handlers are in full view. But dressed in black, they seem to fade away behind the colorful puppets. In the same way, Ito and the oligarchs seem to disappear behind the gaudy symbols of the new parliament and constitution. Politicians came and went, but Ito and the oligarchs stayed in place, discreet, but at center stage, guiding the action.
Perhaps the key element in this is the position of the emperor. The emperor is made absolutely sovereign. The Constitution is bestowed by the emperor to the people. The importance of this is not that it actually gave power to the emperor. It meant that the emperor's advisors are basically beyond the law.
But despite the efforts of Ito and the oligarchs, elements of true democracy slowly began to seep into Japan's parliamentary system.
The Meiji Constitution gradually became the property of the Japanese people. It happened gradually, but even in the Meiji period, by the end of the period, a geisha whose client had not paid was capable of saying to him, he's unconstitutional. It simply wasn't done to contravene what were then known as the rights and duties of the Japanese subject.
The Meiji bureaucrats had secured their power. Now they moved to fortify Japan against the growing might of the Western powers. They saw that the West was strong because industry and science produced weapons that Asia did not have. They came up with a new slogan, Fukoku Kyohei, rich nation, strong military. To make the nation rich and the military strong, Japan had to find a way to pay for it. That meant finding something that other countries wanted to buy. In Japan, that was silk. Silk exports paid for Japan's modernization, and it introduced the Japanese people to a new economic reality.
Well, it's extraordinary how these Japanese farmers, still living in the same feudal villages their ancestors had lived in, making the same crops, suddenly found themselves part of international economics. There's a blight in the silk industry in Italy. There's a boom in Japan. They're making a lot of money. There's a depression in the United States. Nobody wants to buy silk stockings anymore. The money they got from this basic crop was the fuel for Japan's transplantation into a new economy, a new civilization.
Here we see the government absorbing the surplus from the agricultural sector and transforming it and shifting it to the initial industrial sector.
The government wanted to modernize fast, so they tried to do it all themselves. The state built factories, bought warships. Then the government ran out of money.
The Japanese, at this point, I think, here invent one of the great institutions of all times. They decide to subcontract the state's goals to the private sector. And this is what leads ultimately to the zaibatsu.
Zaibatsu were Japan's industrial combines. In Nagasaki Harbor, Mitsubishi was one of the first private companies to form the kind of close relationship with government that continues to spur Japan's economy today. In the 1880s, Mitsubishi was just a small shipping company in a very primitive industry. The government wanted Japan to build its own modern ships, but the government didn't want to pay for them. The government's solution was to subsidize companies like Mitsubishi until they could pay for the new ships.
Bureaucracy tried to co-opt the business sector, and that is to bring them into the establishment and tame them, and then use them for the national interest.
It's sort of an early version of what we in America call the military-industrial complex. Their achievements were national achievements, but any profit they made was private property. And that's exactly the case with Lockheed, General Dynamics, North American Rockwell. Their achievements are national achievements, but any profit they make is private property. And that's exactly what the Japanese pioneered in the 1880s.
The speed of the Meiji transformation was breathtaking. In Europe, the Industrial Revolution took 150 years. Japan went from rice paddies to factories in less than 40. Family silk farms led to textile factories and then to steel mills. 15 years after Perry gave the shogun a toy train, the Japanese had built a real railway from Tokyo to Yokohama. Progress was fast, but the cost was high.